tutors, mentors, and the city with your host.com.
The City Tutors presents
Tutors, mentors, and the city
with your host.com.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Kevin.com Brown, and welcome to Tutors, Mentors, and the City. And please join me in welcoming our guest for this episode, Mr. Radhy Miranda. Hey!
Kevin, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you for making time to join us. I appreciate that also. So, Radhy, I don't know if you've watched any of our previous episodes, but sometimes I say this, sometimes I don't, but I do no research, right? I want to get to know you the same way our viewers are getting to know you. So my first question is starting to be a typical question. That is, Radhy, who are you?
Who am I? I am an immigrant that came from the Dominican Republic, grew up in Washington Heights, New York, which is northern Manhattan for those that are listening from other places. And I went to high school in Harlem, college upstate New York. I am a father. I am a husband. I am now work in philanthropy. I am a person that is dedicated his career to helping people that look like me and that come from underprivileged communities.
Copy that. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say, I'm also a podcaster, so I'm also a helper of people. I am a human that is invested in for community in many different ways.
Copy that. You said you went to high school in Harlem?
I did. Frederick Douglass Academy.
That was that 145th, 135th?
Close, 148th and 7th.
Okay. I didn't know. The high school. Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. And you said you went to college upstate. Where'd you go?
I went to a school called Lemoyne College. It's a school in Syracuse, New York.
Okay. Syracuse, very cold.
Absolutely.
Now, I know Syracuse University. I know Syracuse is a college town. Syracuse University is huge.
Correct. Yeah, we were basically the other school in the city of Syracuse. So it's Syracuse University, and then this small Jesuit institution about 10 minutes away from it, 15 minutes away from it.
So a kid from Harlem, how'd you get there?
So interesting. So I went to a school, Frederick Douglass Academy was a very college prep in school. So very much geared towards how do we get all of these children from Washington Heights, Harlem, and actually folks came from all over the city to the school to colleges. So that was a basic focus. So a lot of that was done through, we had some college admissions folks, but we also had a principal who was very savvy in getting private dollars into this public school. So we had a lot of programs, a lot of college trips, a lot of fees for applications waived so that we could apply to different places and go experience different places before we get there. So, I was able to go visit Lemoyne. They felt like I was decent enough in grades and apply for the HEOP program, which is Higher Education Opportunity Program, which is basically if you have a certain amount of income and a certain amount of grades, you can get into this program. So because I was a lower income family, we were able to get into the school through that program.
Copy that. So what always impresses me is when I hear people who immigrate to this country, Dominican Republic, Haiti, wherever, and they speak with zero accent. You have zero accent. So my question to you is, if you go back to the DR,
yes,
function?
Yeah, so no, I stand out like a sore thumb. It's funny. And I try to mask it when I'm out there and I feel like, no, man, I'm from here. But the reality is I lived there till I was 7 and then I grew up here, right? So I really am a New Yorker. And that is evident when you go back. You just dress differently, you walk differently, you talk differently. So, it's different. So, but certainly I still use my accent to my advantage sometimes.
Copy. Yeah. All those things that we were trained to be derogatory things, they could be
Absolutely.
super.
Absolutely.
And so I'm from the projects in the Bronx, and I've been at the absolute top of the food chain in many aspects of life. But the skill sets, the senses that I have, very powerful, very useful. Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. So okay. All that being said, what was your major when you went to college?
I ended up double majoring, so marketing and management. with minors in communications and philosophy and human resources, but that's another thing.
Really? So you had a double major and a double minor?
Correct. Yeah, a lot of it was I was just very good at understanding how to take courses that count for different parts of curriculum. So I was like, okay, well, if I take these classes, I can actually get a minor in this if I just take one extra class. So let me do that. So I was very like strategic in that manner because I also just didn't know what I wanted to do when I graduated. So I'm like, let me just learn a bunch of things, expose myself to a bunch of things, and see where we land.
Well, let's talk about that because City Tutors. I don't know how familiar you are with City Tutors, but it's a not-for-profit startup. It was founded at City College, the CUNY City University system, City University of New York, and typically we cater to New York's demographic. The CUNY system is anywhere from 300,000 to 500,000 students per year. A lot of first generation college students, a lot of immigrants, a lot of adult learning English as a second language, underserved communities, people that have to work and go to school, people that have to go to school and then work and then go raise a family and then go work again. So it's different from people who can just afford to just do school. You know, somebody else is paying their, tuition. It's a whole nother mindset. It's the New York state of mind. So with that demographic, we provide free tutoring and free mentorship to that demographic of New Yorkers that's becoming the engine of this city. So when a lot of folks are in college, graduate, get degrees, and then still don't know what they want to do. So let's unpack that moment. Let's unpack. Okay. You're a college student, you're figuring it out. Do you seek mentorship? Do you talk to your buddies? Do you call mom? How do you maneuver through this moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So it started a little before college because high school, we had really good leadership and we had really good exposure. One of such things was I was able to build a mentorship relationship organically through one of the foundations that was actually funding some programs in my school. So my principal was savvy enough to get folks to come in and create a lacrosse program for Black and brown kids, right? Create a new a big brother, little brother program, peer mentoring, chess, whatever, right? Mostly for the exposure of and access to scholarships, right? So like lacrosse was at the time the #1 leading scholarship giver. Why didn't we have a program? So, through that, I was able to build a relationship with the people at that foundation. It was the Charles Hayden Foundation. It's an organization that serves youth in New York City and Boston. So seeing their job, I was like, wait, you can give out other people's money? Like, that's interesting to me. And since 16, I knew that was a career that I was interested in because I was like, I don't even have to make the money. I can just give other people's money out. That's great. So fast forward, I'm in college. And I realized at some point, I definitely want to get into that world of philanthropy. In speaking to my mentors, they were like, you should probably get some other different experiences that'll make you more rounded and get you some exposure. So I went, I applied to a bunch of jobs, man. I was trying to graduate. The one thing I knew is I couldn't be broke after college. I'm like, my mother as an immigrant she went from having a college degree in her country to coming here and becoming a custodian, right? Because that's the opportunity that was given to her. So I knew I couldn't be broke. So I'm like, I need a job. So I just started working on like marketing in Syracuse. But in my mind, I knew I wanted to do something that was more community focused. That was a lot of my volunteer experience and a lot of my, I had work study in college that really was in low income housing, working with youth. And I was like, I like this and I like working with people. So, I came back and got a job at Columbia University doing some of that.
Okay. So, and so with a double major and a double minor, trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
When you got to a point where you were applying for a job, first of all, how easy was it for you to get a job?
It was pretty hard. It was, I think I went a bunch of interviews. It was actually the reason why I stayed in Syracuse for like almost a year was because I had this job. I had a girlfriend at the time, now my wife, that was very adamant about I should not stay up there. And I'm like, this is what it is. This is what I got. So we're going to make it do what it do. But yeah, so I think that job was hard to get. I think the transfer process over here, when I really needed to come back home, was um, smoother in that I was able to connect with a temp agency that had relationships with different employers. So it was a city program, free program, New York City Small Business Services, Workforce One Center. I came down, they called me for another job actually. And I was like, I don't want to do that, but I'll talk to you about other things. And they worked with me and said, you know what, you'd probably be good for this role at Columbia. They're building out a campus, and they are committing to doing a lot of things for that community. And it would be great if you meet with that team and see what they're working on. They're doing some really cool things that seem like they align with what you're interested in, Radhy. So, yeah. So I met with them, and being from that community, it seemed pretty interesting to me because I always saw Columbia as like the big bad wolf that only took from community and didn't give anything back.
Yeah, so let's unpack that because I see it as the big bad wolf too. So tell me some good stuff about Columbia. What's going on over there?
Really dedicated humans trying to do a lot of good work for that area. Folks that are very adamant and deliberate around bridging that relationship, recognizing the history with Columbia. Like that's in different departments. Columbia's huge, right? It's one of the biggest employers. But like in my team specifically, before I started, like my supervisor had me come in and sit on like their day retreat and learn about some of the history and riots that happened in the 60s and why Columbia has been historically really bad for that community and why our jobs need to recognize that. And we need to like lean into that and understand that that is where people are coming from as a starting point and how we can bridge from there going forward. So, definitely a group of people that were dedicated. We were very intentional, and those folks are still there doing that great work, making sure that I think the university committed to like 362 different things that runs from giving money to nonprofits in the area to rebuilding of the piers to creating high school internship programs for minority women and local businesses, programs for the youth at Columbia to actually volunteer within the community. So, our team was dedicated and did a lot of that work for a while. So some of the good things are, there's some dedicated folks actually that care.
Well, you know what? That's nice to hear, man. I went to City College in 1980, so I'm familiar with Columbia just because I passed it every day, and I grew up in the Bronx, but I was raised in Harlem, and all the businesses, and I did a bunch of parties and went to a bunch of parties, and I'm familiar with the ecosystem of Harlem. And Columbia, it just wasn't viewed. It wasn't viewed in an unfavorable light, like straight up, but it wasn't viewed in a favorable light. And it wasn't like, yeah, let's go to Columbia because it's here for us. It wasn't like that. Nothing like that.
For sure. And the big gates don't help, right? Like it's literally gated and it has a history of not being welcoming.
Right. So so to hear some positive commentary about it at this moment in time is pleasant. It's pleasant to hear.
Absolutely.
Okay, so was that your first? Well, that was the thing that brought you back to New York.
Correct, but I also feel like that's really the launch of my career, definitely in this space, because it really exposed me to a world where there is a social responsibility and you can actually build a career, making sure holding organizations like Columbia accountable and making sure that they deliver not only on the things that they said they would, but go above and beyond, right? And do more than they should or more than they've committed because they're neighbors and they should. So, really, certainly I think was certainly my first exposure and to this career path of bridging relationships between organizations and community.
Absolutely. Okay. And so after Columbia, what'd you do?
Yeah, so I was at Columbia probably like 6 years. I was able to also take advantage of their tuition benefits while I was there. So I got a master's in public administration while I was there. So if you're out there and thinking about where to go in your career, certainly working at organizations like CUNY, like Columbia, and other higher ed institutions, like those benefits are real and they can really set you up for success going forward. So after 6 years there, I went to the New York City Economic Development Corporation, which is a quasi-government agency. It is an organization that oversees millions of square footage on behalf of the city, specifically along the waterfronts. If you've ever taken a New York City NYC ferry, They're the folks that do that. If you've gone to any of the cruise terminals in the city, if you have gone to a lot of the piers, a lot of those are operated by the city, by that organization, or a lot of the job intensive clubs. So some of the armories around the city, and some of the larger public markets as well. So my job there was government community relations. So building relationships and maintaining them with elected officials, so your local council members, your local Congress members, community boards, community organizations, and being kind of that bridge that brings the voice of the people into the building and the information from what's happening within the building to the community.
Ah, very cool. Okay, and you stayed there for how long, and then did what after?
Yeah, so I stayed there for about 5 years or so. So I was there, doing a lot of that work citywide, a lot of things in the Bronx, a lot of things in Uptown Manhattan, and some other things. And then I was there up until like last year, actually. And now I work at the Rockefeller Foundation. So now I'm in a role where I am a grant maker, tying it back to where we started the conversation, right? Having that mentor that I saw that was in philanthropy. I think that the last 2 years I've been more adamant around, I need to just try it, and I need to just get into that space now, since I've known I wanted it for a while. So why don't I just try it and see if I like it? So I'm at the Rockefeller Foundation now, and that's what I'm doing. I'm a grant maker.
Grant maker. Okay. Rockefeller, everybody knows the name. Old wealth.
Yes.
Deep wealth. What is the mission?
Yeah. So it depends on when you ask. I think one of the things that the Rockefeller Foundation has continued to do is meet the moment of the country and where we are in the world. Right now, a lot of that is climate change, and how do we address climate change in a thoughtful, equitable way. My team specifically, for the last year or so, has really been working on is the equity and economic opportunity team. So it's the folks that really focus on low wage workers and entrepreneurs. And we do that in specifically different parts of the country. My team's portfolio is really 12 different cities throughout the country, and helping get money into people's hands. So whether it's guaranteed income pilots, baby bonds, children's savings accounts, things of that nature, or working with entrepreneurs, giving them technical assistance, and access to capital. So our role is not to do that, but to provide the funds to organizations that are doing that.
Okay, that's really cool. And you're there now?
I'm there now. Yeah. So I've been here now a year, doing that work, which is great national exposure. I get to, work with organizations out in Oakland and Baltimore, El Paso, Texas, and places that I have never been before. Right. But now I am learning a lot and working with the mayors and economic development people in those countries, as well as the grassroots organizations doing the work.
How valuable was your master's degree to you?
It certainly played a role in me getting that very next job. And I think it still continues to play a role in the jobs that I get now. I frankly have not leveraged, aside from keeping up with my network, which I do that pretty well, I haven't leveraged any network for any job opportunity yet. All of my jobs I've either gotten through Indeed or LinkedIn. So, it hasn't manifested in that way yet. But certainly I know it's part of the equation, because I typically like to ask that once I get hired. I'm like, what were some of the factors there? And that always comes up as a topic of conversation.
Which was more valuable, the master's degree or Columbia?
Working at Columbia, for sure. For me personally, because it helped set me on this path of bridging relationships with community. Oh, you mean or are you saying the brand of Columbia?
Yeah,
versus brand. Having a master.
That's what I mean.
I mean, I think both. No, I think either. That's a tough one. I think it's probably a combination of both, but I would say the brand of Columbia never hurts. It's an organization that's been around literally before the country was founded, right? So there's value there.
Master's program, full-time.
Mm-hmm. Correct. So
how difficult was that to maneuver?
It depends who you ask. If you're asking me, it was certainly difficult to manage, particularly on a more personal level. I was slated to start my master's program the week that I had to bury my sister. So, and thereby became a parent as well through that process. So that part was really challenging, starting a master's program at a time where like your life is upside down and it's much different than you ever thought it would be. But you know, I had a now wife that was able to help through that time and make sure that we kept the ship afloat and kept things moving. I have a kid that's remarkable and that's now in high school and getting summer job. So, you know, things kind of all worked out, but I think the balance of the two was certainly hard because part of the master's experience, if you're working, is maintaining the relationships and building that network. So it's not just going to class, right? It's like, as frivolous as it sounds, like you want to go to happy hour. You want to go to like the restaurants afterwards because that's where you really build bonds with people. And that's where you're actually like going to be able to call each other in the future. So, you know, I think the time was definitely challenging. But, you know, if you map it out, you can make it work.
Okay. So you sound like you have a wealth of experience. You sound like one of our success stories. I appreciate your time and all that stuff. Make it available to share your journey with our viewers. So my question would be, if you, as a result of your journey, what advice would you offer to someone on their trajectory of college and about to graduate, about to enter the world? What's the best advice you could offer?
Try to get exposed to a human doing the work that you think makes sense. So for me, building a relationship with a mentor that I saw a job that not only was, I thought, really noble and great and like something that I would like to do, but also paid great, right? Like nonprofits, foundations, you can make a good amount of money doing some really cool work. So, you know, I think that's certainly one of the things that I like to offer. You know, it's literally the reason why I have this podcast aside from work is because it's career cheat code. And that's what I'd like to talk about. I like to expose people to those types of folks that I didn't see growing up. You know, when I was growing up, it was a lot of my family members were, you know, doing great work in the community, like being on a bodega or cab drivers or anything like that. But I wasn't beyond like going through high school and going through like these mentorships. Like I wasn't exposed to that. So for me, you know, my mom would be like, you got to be probably a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. And I'm like, I don't want to do none of that. So, you know, definitely get exposed to as many career opportunities as you can, because you can pave a way for yourself and make some really good money while having a really interesting impact in the world.
Okay, so this is the question. This is your question. This is a fill in the blank question. What did we not cover? Is there something we left out?
Is there something we left out? Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I think this is certainly in terms of career paths, I think this is something that we've covered a lot of it. You know, I'm really dedicating my life to Black and brown folks and bringing some of that impact, wealth, knowledge back to our communities. So, you know, I continue to do that in my professional life and in my extracurricular life. So whether that's being on a board of organizations or being, you know, really invested in getting this information out there, that's me. That's what I'm about.
What's the name of your podcast?
Career Cheat Code.
Career Cheat Code. Where do we find it?
Anywhere that you listen to podcasts. So if you have Spotify, Apple, whatever that looks like. The one thing is YouTube coming this summer, but otherwise everything is out there.
Okay, and how's it going? Are you able to write yourself a grant?
Not yet, man. So we're working on it. You know, I'm really doing this because I think it's important, and because I think it's important to get the information out there. You know, I'm not even monetizing the thing yet, so we're working to that. But right now, it's just a matter of there are some really great folks doing great work, and they are in interesting careers that I think folks should get exposed to. So that marriage of those two is really what I'm working towards.
Absolutely. So all that being said, Radhy, Miranda, thank you so much, brother. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate your insights. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin.